Welcome back to FlatsClass University. Today's lesson, well, we're going to talk a little bit about 10 of the most popular inshore baits that are thrown to speckled trout when we're moving into the fall and into the winter, and what rods or actions you'll need to accomplish this. Now, we're not going to cover the casting rods. We're only going to cover spinning rods. So you spinning rod fans, if you're ready, let's go over here to the drawing board and talk about it. Something you need to really understand about both speckled trout and the lures that you're throwing is there is a difference from brand to brand that is very subjective on what the actual action of the rod is. For me, many times I choose the rod based off not only the technique, but the hook size. And remember, speckled trout have a very, I'm going to say, fragile or paper mouth to them. And they're also known for their hard head shaking ability at the surface. So they can leverage a plug or a lure out of their mouth quite easily. And it happens often when they get very close to the boat where there's not enough forgiveness in the rod. So let's talk about rods first. And this is what I have for you. Most of the rods that I throw with clients or me personally are 7 foot to 7 foot 4 inch rods. And you'll probably say, well, why not 7'6" or longer? There's a saying at FlatsClass University, and that is, if you're trying to find fish or you're fishing an open grass flat or open bays and you have no idea, you're in the spray and pray zone, then a longer rod can be afforded to make those type of casts. But if you have a good idea where you're fishing around docks and seawalls and oyster bars, and you're targeting potholes or troughs, or most of us mangrove shorelines in many cases, then casting accuracy is what catches fish. You always think of that. Casting distance is for finding, casting accuracy is for catching. And that's what we're about at FlatsClass University, is catching. So 7 foot to 7 foot 4 rods are ideal. They also minimize that tip wrap from that light limp braid that you get with a longer rod. Now there's two schools of thought. There's fast and mod fast for speckled trout. When do you use each? And that's really the premise of this video, is to tell you what lures fit in this category of fast and what lures fit more in this parabolic area of mod fast. And probably the first thing I should do is show you the difference with the tip of the rod. So let me grab these rods. So this is a 7 foot 2 fast, all right? This is what we would call a crisper action. So when I'm going down the rod, I'm about a third of the way down, I'm trying to bend it. It's not very easy to bend there. But as I move up toward the tip, it starts to bend, okay? But it's only bending in this, I'm gonna say 20% of this 7 foot 2 fast action spinning rod. This is a medium heavy rod actually. So it allows you, or affords you, the ability to cast heavier plugs, affords you to cast plugs that might have a heavier hook in them, such as this, okay? So when those opportunities are there to throw those big plugs for bigger fish, for bigger trout, you're going to need a rod that's this fast. Now let me show you the difference in a medium action. A medium weight, I should say, with a mod fast. So here's the tip on this one. I'm bending it down here. It's already bending. It's really bending here. And up here at the tip, it's a really parabolic. And then when we look at the chart here, you see that parabolic bend. What does that forgiveness back and forth do for you? Well, it does this. It allows you to throw smaller wire baits. So if you're throwing a Mirrolure that has some mod thin hooks on it, like this one here, if you're throwing a shallow water diver Paul Brown Mirrolure Soft Dyne XL, it's going to allow you to throw those finer wire hooks. If you're throwing 3 to 4 inch paddle tails with small wire, fine wire jig heads. It's going to allow you to do all of that. So let's talk about those 10 popular baits right now. We'll write them down on the board and we'll talk about why the Fast and the Mod Fast. And this might help you choose when you go to the tackle retailer what rod you want to use. So let's do that right now. Okay, large topwaters. We talked about that a second ago. Large topwaters like the Papa Dog or the Top Dog Junior, the Top Dog, the bigger the She Dog has a little finer wire hook. Anytime you have size 2 treble hooks that are not lighter weight, they're more 2X. They're designed to catch more than trout. Let's just say that. You're buying them out of the package and you're using them. When you're using those bigger plugs because you're fishing a little bit deeper water, or you're fishing a zone where you need to call fish in, it might have, chalky water, maybe moving water, maybe you have a little bit more wind riffle on the surface and you're using those large plugs, you need that fast action rod, that one that doesn't bend quite as easy. It's going to allow you to make a long cast, but it's also going to allow you to get a good hook set because you want that nice, solid hook set that gives you the hook penetration, but there's still enough tip with a bigger plug like that to hang into them. It would be harder to throw that on a parabolic rod because you'd have to almost lob it. You wouldn't be able to make a good cast with it. So it would take that away from you. Now, if it were me, I would probably lighten the hooks up so I could make the hole in the mouth of the trout a lot smaller. But if you're going to use large, that would be the first one I would think of for using that, would be large topwaters, for sure. So that brings me to this. What if you want to throw a small to medium topwater? This is what most of you probably throw, like a top pup, a she pup, something in the Mirrolure lineup that looks like that. A little 3.5 to maybe 3 and 7.75 inch bait for topwater and try to get a blow up. Well, that's obviously going to be right here. That's going to be number one for your medium action. So small, we'll go small to medium topwaters here. And arguably, topwaters is a lot about what speckled trout fishing is. We love throwing them. Now let's go to the next category, suspending baits. So if I'm going to throw a suspending bait like a Paul Brown lure, or a soft dine, a Mirrodine, whether it be a 17 or maybe even an XL. But as long as the hook size is size 4 or a thinner 1X instead of a 2X strong hook, if I'm not upping that hook size, if I'm keeping those hooks light, like the double Ds and things like that, even if you're going to throw a fat boy, you can get away with throwing that on the medium, on what I would call the Mod Fast. So I would throw Mirrodines on this rod, Paul Browns. Now remember, we're talking about spinning gear here. We're not talking about casting gear. For those of you that are looking at this, you're like, well, I throw casting gear and the actions are a little bit different. And if you live in Texas, you might even be even lighter than those that are living here in Florida. And you probably like rods that are closer to that 7-foot size than you do the longer rods like we do here in Florida in this clear water. But I'm telling you right now, spinning rods are a big deal for trout anglers here in the state of Florida, along the Carolinas, and in the upper Gulf Coast. And if you have a good understanding on what rod you need for what lure, it helps you a ton when you're buying either one of those, whether you're buying the lures or buying the rods. All right, let's hit another thing. Let's talk about soft plastics a little bit next. Okay, soft plastics could go one of two ways. If I'm going to Texas rig a soft plastic and throw it around oyster, throw it around docks, I'm trying to fish what I would call structure or cover, and I might have the bait where the hook is buried in the bait, or maybe the wire of the hook is a little larger. I'm going to go ahead and put that in this fast category. So I'm going to immediately, where did I put my marker here? If I'm T-rigging, unless it's a real fine wire Texas rig, I'm probably with soft plastics. I'm going to go up here. I might need to go back to school and learn how to spell. I'm going to put the Texas rigs here. Okay. I'm also going to put in that same category if I need to feel bottom. Mod fast rods or parabolic rods, they don't feel bottom as well. So let's just say you're fishing the mouth of a creek, or you're fishing, a hard piece of bottom, and you need to be able to touch the bottom and know it's there. A lot of the times when I'm throwing prawn stars on these loose body sizes, I'll throw them on a tungsten head or a football head or a shaky head, and I want to feel that bottom. I just do. When I need to touch the bottom, have that contact with bottom, I'm probably going to throw a faster rod. I'm going to say bottom contact. That's important to you. Faster rod is probably going to be the one for you. But let's just say I want to throw something like a Little John, or in this case, this is our thick trick from Z-Man, okay? Let's say I want to throw one of those, or maybe I want to throw a 3 or a 4-inch paddle tail, which so many of us do, okay? You're wanting to throw it and you're throwing it on a small fine wire jig head like that trout eye, or even if you're throwing the prawn stars, okay? If I can get a hold of it here. If you're throwing the prawn stars, if you're throwing a bait like that and you're working it through the middle of the water column and you're kind of just swimming it, keeping some line tension, and thump, you feel that trout thump, that signature thump. You come tight and you start reeling. That is better on Mod Fast, because now you got the fish hooked, he's going to come to the top and start shaking, and you've got, because just a little small hole in his mouth and you've probably got a deep enough throat in that hook, you're probably going to be fine throwing those down here. So I'm going to say down here, light wire, we'll just call that whole category light wire jigs. Those are going to be fine. Those are going to be fine. Now, there's another category that I want to talk about a little bit, and let me find that plug up here. All right, I found it. What if you want to throw single inline hooks? Some people are big fans of single inline hooks. I personally, not as big a fan. There's times when I will use single inline hooks, but most of the time I don't. But we're not going to talk about that. That's a whole nother video. If you want to use single inline hooks, you're going to have to use a fast rod, a medium heavy fast rod. The reason for that is the thickness of the hooks are such that you need better hook striking ability. So with them being that thick, you're going to have to really hit them, and you need to get that penetration. Many of you that have used inline hooks on softer, more trout-like rods, you come tight, the fish is running around, he shakes off, and the plug was never really in him. He never really had it. He just grabbed onto it, and he never got hooked. If there's one drawback, that's a major drawback to inline hooks, is the hookup ratio goes way down. You miss half the fish. So if you're going to use it and you don't want to miss half, you can minimize that by going to a faster action rod. So I'm going to say inline hook rods right here, number 4. That's what makes inline hooks a little bit more effective if you got to use them. All right. Am I missing anything? Sure, there are situational baits almost everywhere. If you're going to use Neds, you're going to go right back to using it. You'll use a lighter action rod and it might be fast so you can feel the Ned better, but it's still going to be a pretty forgiving rod. It's a light rod. Let's just say, okay, here's a popular style. Let's just say cork rigs. If I can get this one free. You got a cork and you got a tail, whether it's a paddle tail, cockahoe minnow, a shrimp, and you're popping that cork and you're ripping that shrimp through the water column. Popping that cork and ripping that shrimp through the water column. Very effective in a lot of fisheries. What rod would you need that? Well, there's some weight that's associated with it. Now, if you're using a really tiny cork like the old Love's Floatin' Love or whatever, you could get away with a medium action rod. But most cases, if you're going to use a cork rig, I would put it right here in this category. I would say number 5 would be cork rig right here. And then number 4 down here would be any small jigs. I'm not going to say Neds in particular, but just small jigs. Let's just say, for instance, the 2.5-inch prawn stars. Or if you're using, any of those finesse TRDs that are Neds, but you're using them on different jig heads, they're probably all going to fall in that mod fast, that more parabolic bend type rod. But if you're a spinning rod fan, if we go into review a little bit, think about this. Think about that 7'4" down to a 7-foot rod. Especially if you're a wade angler, if you're a kayak angler, if you're a skiff angler, it's just a lot easier if you're fishing creeks or you're fishing anywhere where you're target fishing. Those, I don't call those short rods. They're not short rods. When I was growing up, 7-foot rod was the longest rod we ever used. We thought that was incredibly long. To me, these are what I would call the average rod now is 7 foot to 7'4". I still have many rods in my arsenal that I use on a regular basis on the casting side that are shorter than 7 foot. But 7 to 7'4" is pretty normal. So if target fishing, casting accuracy is important to you, start thinking about this style rod in your spinning outfits. And your reel size is going to probably vary. I would say 2500 is probably what you're going to be using, but you might want to use a 3000. And then in some cases, you're going to be using line weights anywhere from what I would say 8-pound all the way up to maybe 15, depending upon the scenario that you're fishing, with 10 probably being the most likely braid weight that you're using. So that's what we have today for you. If you enjoyed this lesson and you took something out of it and it's very valuable to you, please give us a thumbs up, a like. Sorry for that light I got coming blazing through the window right now. But give us that thumbs up. And also, please, if you can, subscribe. Many of our viewers do not subscribe to the channel. So I'd love it if you would. All right, that's all I've got for you today. I'll have another great tip for you tomorrow.